Open, pull it out. What the Get the in! Put your hands down! Charles, no. Listen, calm down.
What happened? A car was stopped in Maryland, seemingly just for a traffic violation. But when the police opened the trunk, they were faced with a dark secret so shocking that the whole of America shuddered and kept talking about it for days afterward. Hello, everyone. I am Mr. High, the 90-year-old man. If you find these mysterious, haunting, and full of surprises stories fascinating, please hit the subscribe button to support me and give me more motivation to continue telling you other shocking cases and secrets in the next videos. Late at night, at 11:15 p.m. on July 28, 2021, in Essex, a small town in Baltimore County, Maryland, USA. A patrol officer shined his flashlight on a speeding car along an otherwise deserted road. At first, it was just a routine traffic stop, like hundreds of others this officer had made before. But he had no idea that he was about to inadvertently open the door to one of the most horrifying cases in local history. A case that made many seasoned officers break down in tears, vomit, and carry the memory with them for the rest of their lives. The driver was a woman named Nicole Michelle Johnson, 33 years old. Beside her was a friend she often called by the nickname BB. When the officer approached and asked for identification, Nicole appeared nervous. She could only present an ID card, but no valid driver's license. The vehicle registration documents did not match at all, and even more suspicious, the license plates on the car were fake.
So you got pulled over for the same stuff already?
But that's why I went, and I really thought I...
Yet, in the middle of this exchange, Nicole uttered a strange sentence, something that at first sounded like a complaint, but was in fact a chilling prediction of what was about to unfold. Tomorrow, everyone will see me on the news. I swear.
Say, I'm not even talking about in Baltimore. Watch, tomorrow y'all are going to see me on the news. Y'all are going to see me make my big debut. Baltimore, watch, tomorrow y'all are going to see me on the news.
The officer paused for a moment, shuddering instinctively, though he could not yet imagine the dark meaning behind those words. He only knew that, by procedure, the car would need to be towed. And before the tow truck arrived, Nicole was allowed to take a few personal belongings out of the vehicle. It was in that very moment, when she opened the trunk, that an unbearable stench burst out. A foul odor so overwhelming it made the officer's throat tighten, his heart race, and his entire body break out in goosebumps. This was not the smell of dirty clothes, nor spoiled food. It was a dense, putrid stench that anyone who has ever encountered it would immediately recognize. The smell of death. Nicole insisted it was just dirty clothes, old bedding.
A bunch of dirty clothes. A bunch of dirty clothes.
That don't smell like dirty clothes.
Huh?
That don't smell like dirty clothes.
What do you mean?
But the officer's instincts told him that something horrific was being concealed. He forced himself to stay calm and ordered Nicole to pull out each layer of fabric, each plastic bag. The deeper they dug, the more the stench of death assaulted their noses, forcing the officers to cover their faces, curse, and gag.
I don't think that a guilty person would be doing it like this. If I take all my stuff out, where am I going to...
They still didn't know exactly what was inside. But one thing was certain. It was not the pile of dirty laundry Nicole claimed it to be.
I'm telling you, you're going to find a bunch of dirty blankets.
Yeah, but I need to know what that smell is.
I'm about to show you.
Nicole had already said, "Tomorrow, everyone will see me on the news." And indeed, the very next day, both Baltimore and then the entire nation were stunned by the headlines splashed across the front pages. Bodies of 2 children discovered in car trunk after traffic stop. But at that moment, at the scene, no one could have guessed that even more horrifying truths were waiting to be revealed, far beyond anything anyone could imagine. If you were a police officer in that situation, upon opening the trunk and smelling the overwhelming stench of death, how do you think you would react? A. Continue opening it to uncover the truth. B. Step back and call for additional support. C. Believe Nicole's claim that it was only dirty clothes. Choose your answer and leave it in the comments below.
All the way, so we can see all the dirty stuff. I don't think that a guilty person would be doing it like this.
As the flashlight swept across, each black plastic bag, each worn-out blanket was pulled from the trunk, and the atmosphere in Essex, Maryland, on the night of July 28, 2021, thickened like heavy fog. The stench of death shot straight into a police officer's nose, forcing him to stumble back, his hands trembling as if he could no longer hold the flashlight. But they kept going, because in that moment, everyone knew that if they stopped, they would never uncover the horrifying truth buried beneath that filthy pile. And the truth was unforgettable.
If I take all my stuff out, where am I going to?
I just need, this right here is...
Bag after bag was torn open, each one releasing an even more suffocating wave of foul odor, making witnesses grimace, turn away, some even dry heave on the spot. A veteran officer muttered, "God, this can't just be dirty clothes." Yet Nicole Johnson stood nearby, her face emotionless, repeating the same excuse.
Because we stay in hotels, from the hotel to the car, like I can even get the hotel.
No, you can finish it. I was just carrying.
It's just some old blankets. I live in my car. I carry dirty stuff. It's nothing. Those words sounded like a flimsy veil, only convincing everyone further that under those layers lay something beyond imagination. Finally, they reached a black suitcase. It was unusually heavy, stiff, and seemed to be the very source of the overpowering stench of death. An officer wiped the sweat from his brow, his gloved hand gripping a folding knife, carefully slicing through the layers of plastic wrapped tightly around the suitcase. The tension was like a taut wire. The group stood around it, almost holding their breath. The only sounds were the tearing of the blade and the pounding of hearts in their chests. The suitcase sprang open, and in that very instant, a deathly silence blanketed the scene. The officer holding the flashlight recoiled, his hand shaking as he lowered it. Another officer dropped to his knees, cursing under his breath before turning his face away. Inside the suitcase was not clothing, nor household items as Nicole had claimed. It was the body of a little girl, curled up in a blanket, her form badly decomposed, cloaked in the horrific stench of death, so overwhelming that even the most hardened officers nearly collapsed.
No. Pull it out.
That child was later identified as Joshin Marie James Johnson, only 7 years old. And what was even more terrifying was that, at that moment, the police had no idea this was only half of the horrifying truth waiting for them inside that shabby car. The moment they saw that small, curled-up body, one officer quietly pulled a surgical mask from his pocket, hurriedly placing it over his face, not just to block the smell, but to hide his emotions. Because he had just thought of his own little daughter, the same age as the victim, who was peacefully asleep at home. He whispered, "This little girl must have once had a warm bed, a toy, a pair of loving arms. And now?" His voice trailed off, but everyone understood. They were standing before a crime beyond forgiveness, a cruelty no words could ever describe. That night, the quiet road in Essex suddenly turned into the scene of a murder that shook the community. The red and blue lights of police cars flashed relentlessly, illuminating the pale faces of officers still reeling in shock. They had to call in more units, grab more gloves, more masks, because the work was far from over. They had only opened one suitcase. Many more plastic bags and containers remained unsearched. And the terrifying question haunted them all. If one suitcase held a child, then what would the others contain? Just minutes later, inside that same car, the police would uncover something even more haunting. What do you think it was?
It's a bedtime bag. What? Hey, come back.
The air, thick with the stench of death, had not yet cleared. They were still trembling from the first discovery when another officer pointed to a large black and yellow plastic container tucked in the corner of the trunk. This container, too, was tightly bound with layers of plastic bags and strips of duct tape, and it emitted an odor even stronger than the suitcase that had just been opened. In that moment, everyone understood. Inside was not trash, not discarded belongings. A truth even worse was waiting for them. As the knife sliced through the layers of plastic, no one spoke a word. The sound of the blade scraping against the plastic was harsh, chilling, and enough to make the hairs on their necks stand up. When the lid finally snapped open, a wave of rancid air burst out as if trying to drive everyone away. And then, as the beam of the flashlight cut into the container, the truth revealed itself. It was the body of a little boy, so small that one officer blurted out, "God, this boy looks like he's only 3 or 4 years old." But later, the records confirmed. The boy was 5.
Oh my God, dude, that's a 5. That's a 5.
That's a 5-year-old white child.
His name was Larry Darnell O'Neill, lovingly called Stink by his family. His body was wrapped in blankets, sealed in layers of plastic, decomposed almost beyond recognition. The only thing left intact was the Paw Patrol pajamas he had worn before his death. The officers stood over him, their throats tightening, many unable to speak. A young rookie whispered, "I have a son the same age. If my boy were in this condition." He couldn't finish his sentence, turning his face away, his trembling hands clenched tight. This discovery erased all doubt. It was no longer a matter of a strange smell. It was undeniable evidence, laid bare, of an unthinkable crime. In that old car, the police had uncovered not one but 2 children. A 7-year-old girl in a suitcase, a 5-year-old boy in a plastic container, and both were the nieces and nephews of Nicole Johnson, the woman standing on the side of the road in handcuffs, still muttering excuses.
I wasn't okay. That's why I took off. I sat there about another 3 days speeding around with the bodies in my car.
That night, the officers in Essex were forced to witness a truth no one could ever be mentally prepared for. They knew that the body of a single child was enough to haunt a lifetime. But 2 children lying side by side inside the same car, that was beyond endurance. One officer later admitted he had to take several weeks of leave just to try to forget the moment that plastic container was opened. What made the case even more unbelievable was the circumstances of the 2 children. They had never been reported missing. No one had ever called the police for help. They had never been admitted to a hospital in Maryland, nor were their names in any school records. And most disturbingly, when the medical examiner conducted their assessment, the children's weights were horrifyingly abnormal. Joshin, 7 years old, weighed only 18 pounds. Larry, 5 years old, weighed just about 21 pounds. These numbers were far below the average, painting a picture of children who had endured prolonged hunger and severe malnutrition. It was almost impossible to accept that during all this time, Nicole was still driving around, renting hotel rooms, and chatting casually with friends through text messages as if nothing had happened. She even filmed the very plastic container in the trunk, complaining about the smell, and sent the video to a friend. None of them could have imagined that inside was the body of a child. That truth was like a knife carving deeper into the minds of the investigators. Because it wasn't just murder, it was complete abandonment. These children had lived on the margins of society, with no medical records, no schooling, no one searching for them, no one reporting them missing. And when they died, they were hidden away in darkness, in layers of plastic, inside a foul-smelling container, as if their existence had never been worth anyone's concern. When Larry's body was finally lifted out, one officer fell to his knees on the roadside, burying his face in his hands. He said, "I thought I had seen everything, but tonight I realize there are things humans should never do, especially to a child." His words blended with the wail of ambulance sirens, tearing through the quiet night of Essex. If the first suitcase had plunged the scene into shock, then the second plastic container turned the case into a tragedy. An undeniable truth, raw and unshakable. And the most painful part was that these children should have been protected, should have been loved, but instead, they died at the hands of the very aunt their mother had entrusted them to. And the biggest question, lingering in the minds of everyone present that night, how could a human being go this far? When the 2 small bodies were removed from the car, half of the truth had been revealed. But what kept the investigators from leaving that night was the demeanor of the woman named Nicole Johnson. Handcuffed, sitting in the interrogation room, she sometimes cried, sometimes appeared indifferent, at times even mumbling to herself. And then, piece by piece, her statements began to reveal a reality so unbelievable that anyone hearing it would struggle to accept it as truth.
You told me not to give that girl her kids. Ask for where they been at when I've been growing up. I guess I ran away with some of this, and some of that, and some of this. I'm not saying anything else.
Nicole testified that the death of the little girl, Joshin, was just an accident. She said that around May 2020, she became angry because the child was misbehaving, taking food from the refrigerator without permission. She decided to discipline her by hitting harder than usual. In her rage, she slapped, she pushed.
Did you hit her?
I just started doing it.
And Joshin fell to the floor, striking her head hard against the ground. When the girl became unusually silent, Nicole tried pressing on her chest, shaking her, but the small body did not respond. Instead of calling for help, instead of rushing her to the hospital, Nicole laid her niece on the bed, lay down beside her, and waited.
I laid in the bed with her.
You laid her in the bed and laid next to her? Where was the boy at this?
She waited in silence until she realized it was too late. Then she decided to hide the child's body inside a suitcase. Her words were so cold that one investigator had to stop writing, raising his eyes to look directly into Nicole's, as if searching for a shred of remorse. But all he saw was an empty stare. She admitted that afterward she continued moving from one hotel to another, carrying the suitcase with her niece's corpse for more than a year, even living, eating, and sleeping right next to it. What was even harder to believe was that during this time, Nicole kept texting her sister, the children's mother. She sent thank you notes, sweet messages like, "The kids are fine. I'm taking good care of them." The mother, trusting her, even transferred money to Nicole to buy food for the children. No one knew that the little girl had long been dead, lying cold in the suitcase just behind her aunt. Then Nicole began to speak about the boy, Larry, also called Stink. His death occurred around May 2021, only 2 months before the traffic stop. Nicole recalled that day. The boy was playing, fussing with something. She got angry, scolded, then hit him.
I think something hit him in the leg.
Yeah, but that wouldn't cause him to die.
Afterward, she noticed blood seeping from his leg.
I know I saw him bleeding
Mm-hmm.
in his leg.
Where at on his leg?
On the inside of his thigh. She didn't know where it came from and didn't bother to check. Within hours, Larry grew weaker, his eyes glazed, his voice faint. His last words were, "Auntie, let me lie down." Nicole recounted this slowly, as if the moment still echoed in her mind. But instead of taking him to the hospital, she let him lie on the back seat of the car, then walked away to smoke a cigarette. When she returned, Larry had slipped away, and this time, he never woke up again. People might have expected her testimony to be accompanied by tears, by overwhelming remorse. But Nicole laced her account with clumsy excuses. She said she only wanted to discipline, only wanted them to listen, that she was just too tired of life. She repeated over and over, "I didn't mean to kill them. I was just angry."
What led to the next incident with the other child?
I don't know. Like, I honestly.
But in the eyes of the investigators, each excuse only made the crime seem more brutal, because the deaths of the 2 children were not a random moment of misfortune, but the consequence of prolonged neglect, abuse, and deception. There was one detail that made the case even more haunting. When questioned, Nicole could not remember the exact birth dates of her nieces and nephews. She even misspelled Joshin's name, unable to pronounce it correctly. All of this shattered the facade of the caring aunt Nicole had built in the eyes of her sister and family. And there, in the interrogation room of the Baltimore Police Department, stood revealed a lonely woman, warped in thought, admitting she had hidden the bodies of children for more than a year, living alongside the stench of death while pretending everything was normal. The story became even more heart-wrenching when an investigator asked, "Why didn't you return the children to your sister?" Nicole stayed silent for a long time, then blurted out, "Because no one really wanted them, not even their mother. I was just the last one holding on to them." That answer did not lessen her guilt, but it stunned everyone listening because it exposed a bitter circle. 2 children, abandoned from the very beginning, passed around, and in the end, dying at the hands of the very person entrusted with them. The moment Nicole admitted, "I put my niece in the suitcase and carried her with me for more than a year," the entire room fell into silence. A thick, heavy silence, as if everyone was trying to imagine a woman moving from place to place, staying in hotels, driving around, living as though nothing had happened, all while a suitcase in the trunk contained the body of a child. And the final twist, the most painful truth, was that she had done this not with one child, but with both of them. Hearing that confession, I couldn't help but think of the children around me. a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old. At that age, they should have been learning letters, playing games, eating a warm dinner with their family. But in this story, they were starved, beaten, and in the end, hidden away in darkness with no one looking for them. This was not just a criminal case. It was a wound carved deep into the conscience, a reminder that when a child is neglected, the consequences can be more brutal than any sentence handed down in court. And that is why, when Nicole finished her testimony, one investigator stood up and quietly left the room, taking in a long, deep breath. He returned a few minutes later, but his eyes were different. They were the eyes of someone who had once believed he had seen all the cruelty the world had to offer, only to realize that some truths are far more painful than anything he had ever encountered before. The investigation revealed another heartbreaking truth. During the entire 2 years, no one reported Joshin and Larry missing. Not a single news report, not a single emergency call was made. These children had vanished from society in silence, hidden away in the dark. And if not for that fateful traffic stop on the night of July 28, 2021, perhaps no one would have ever known that they had been dead for so long. Their deaths were like a knock on the conscience, showing how far indifference can go for 2 small lives to slip away without a sound. Nicole Johnson was arrested that very night, facing 14 serious charges, including 2 of the highest, child abuse resulting in death. In August 2024, Nicole officially pled guilty, and by February 2025, at the Baltimore trial, the final sentence was handed down: life in prison, reduced to 50 years of incarceration, and 5 years of probation afterward. To many, even 50 years might seem far from enough for such a monstrous crime. But for Nicole, at 33 years old, this sentence meant the rest of her life would be spent behind bars, haunted by the memories of the 2 children she had once promised to care for. What chills me the most when revisiting this case file is not only the tragic deaths of the 2 children, but the way they disappeared. No schools, no hospitals, no missing person reports. They vanished from the light, existing only in the darkness of a suitcase and a plastic container, until the stench of death forced the police to uncover the truth. And here lies the cruelest twist of all. Had it not been for what seemed like an ordinary traffic stop, the world would never have known about the existence or the deaths of Joshin and Larry. As I closed the file, I asked myself, how many other children out there are living in similar circumstances, unnoticed, unsearched for, unloved, only to vanish quietly, just like them? This is not just a story about a crime. It is a warning. Because the most painful truth is not only that one woman acted with such cruelty toward 2 children, but that an entire society allowed them to disappear in silence for 2 whole years. Children are not only the seedlings of a family, but also the future of an entire society. They need to be loved, protected, and cared for more than anyone else, because just one moment of neglect, one act of abandonment, can steal away a life that has not yet had the chance to blossom. This heartbreaking story reminds us all: pay attention to the children around you. Reach out when you see a child being hurt, because sometimes a single moment of timely care can be enough to save a life. Thank you for staying until the very end to listen to this story. I am Mr. High, the 90-year-old man. If you find this message meaningful, please hit the subscribe button so I can have more motivation to continue bringing you stories that truly touch the heart in the next videos.